What's up, YouTube? So I forgot to charge my 360 cam last night, so we're just gonna roll with the phone today as an exception. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about something that I've wanted to do a video on for a while, which is mindfulness meditation. Just a quick rundown of it, why I do it, what its benefits are, how to do it, and strange side effects. So anyway, I've been a proponent of mindfulness and meditation for a long time now, for its many proven at this point health benefits, to relieve stress levels, for emotional well-being, for becoming a more balanced person, to have less emotional ups and downs. For me in particular, the benefit I have noticed is I do tend to have a lot of emotional ups and downs throughout the day. It keeps me from having as much of an extreme difference between the two. Like, I don't really get unnecessarily angry at stupid things that don't matter. Now it's like I get angry at things. I'm still a human being, but it's just like I'll get angry and I'll realize, oh, this is pissing me off, and then I can just shake it off usually. Much better. As long as if I'm doing it on a daily basis, the benefits for me have been huge, and I can't speak enough for it. I feel like everyone really needs to consider it as an option. It may not be for everybody, but everyone should consider it. It just tends to make life a little better and a little bit easier. So, there are many things that they call meditation, and what I have considered over the years is that I notice a lot of things that are being called meditation are like Western meditation, which is not really meditation. It's not to say that it's not beneficial, it's just for a different means to an end. And that, I mean that you'll see a lot of stuff labeled meditation that is about fixating on an image or a goal, which that's really all that it's doing, is just focusing your will on something that you are trying to achieve. It has nothing to do with the actual goal of meditation as it was invented or whatever. And what I mean by that is the actual goal of true mindfulness meditation is to clear the mind of any kind of thoughts. So you kind of like, it's like hitting the reset button, if you will. It clears your head out so you can remain focused on whatever you're working on, or just, like I said, have a more balanced emotional well-being throughout the day, as well as to be able to live your life less passively. Without meditation, I will find that I tend to kind of drift through life a lot more, not paying attention to the little details and not catching everything, especially like in conversations with people. I can't focus as well and catch all the details. With mindfulness meditation, it then makes me easier to focus on whether I'm working on something or I'm having a conversation with someone, actually being in the moment and paying attention and catching all of the important details. I feel like it's a disease these days, the way that we are constantly in front of TV screens and phone screens, that we have been lulled into a dream state to where we live our lives passively and we don't catch any of the things going on around us. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, it's like when you try to have a conversation with someone these days, it's like you can repeat yourself 5 times and they don't hear it, and they're sitting right next to you so they can hear you. It's just that they cannot stay focused long enough to have that conversation. Well, that's a symptom of, like I said, being in a constant daydream state from our day-to-day lives. And it's not the end of the world, but it's irritating to have a conversation with someone when they do that. And it's irritating to be that person in the conversation, and I don't want to be that person in the conversation, because it has nothing to do whether I feel what you have to say is important. It has to do with my ability to focus. So I don't ever want to make someone feel like what they're talking about is not valuable, and if I'm a more active listener, I can do that much better. Anyway, meditation is really, 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 really simple. Everybody tries to complexify it and make it way more difficult than what it is, or more complicated than what it is. All it simply is clearing your head out of any distracted thoughts and being active in the moment. So basically, the way I explain it is for beginners, and I consider myself a beginner as well because I don't do it enough on a regular basis to consider myself any sort of a full expert, is that you simply want to start out by focusing on your breathing in and breathing out as a singular train of thought. And when you do that, you're going to notice very soon that thoughts try to pop in your head when you're doing this, like what bills you owe, what you are going to say to someone later that day, and those need to be pushed aside, and it's almost like you're swatting flies, and you basically need to be mentally doing that when you do the mindfulness meditation, is you need to be pushing those thoughts aside, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes you will eventually hit a point to where it's barely an issue. It's kind of like seeing something in your peripheral vision, and it's just like, yep, it's there, and then move it away. But that's the state that you ultimately are trying to achieve. It's nothing mystical, it's nothing magical, it's something real simple. It's just clearing your head. And that's just what you're trying to do, is just trying to clear your head out. And to make things easier, first off, you want to find somewhere and something comfortable to sit on. Some people do pillows. I actually just prefer a blanket on the floor. It's enough of a cushion to keep me from being uncomfortable and adjusting, so I can sit still and focus on what I'm doing. The other thing is you have to be careful about is background noise can really throw you off, like in just an instant. So I'll actually play on my Google, I'll play a white noise in the background to drown out any cars or airplanes, because we do live by an airport here. As well as we put the animals up, so the dog kind of chills out in the bedroom, and the cat usually doesn't come in here anyway, but we just shut the door so they can't come in here and bother us while we're trying to do this. I recommend personally, I know some people say longer, but I recommend starting out with 20-minute sessions until you start to feel comfortable with that, and as you can move up to an hour session, I feel that there's a lot of benefit in that. Now, like I said, there is also very strange side effects with that for some people. Now, with you doing what you're doing, because your mind is going to constantly want to slam stuff into itself. It does not want to sit still. It does not want to stay clear. So if you are taking out any outside input, whether it be something you're thinking about, whether it be something you're watching or listening to, you will actually start to have sometimes, some people, mild hallucinations. And I'm going to talk about mine this week because it's been really crazy. It is merely my brain making things happen because it doesn't like having an empty cup, if you will, with nothing in it. So one of the first meditation sessions I had in the last week or so, mind you, I'm not saying this is anything mystical. I'm not. I'm merely saying this is a product of my brain. It's just interesting. And it always makes you think like I could do something cool fictional with it. Anyway, one of the first times I was sitting there, in my head, I started to see a pyramid kind of like rotating out of control. And the first pyramid that I started to see it looked like it was made out of gold. And the second one, a moment later, kind of appeared, and it was like pure negative, like black. Like, I guess it was supposed to be antimatter. But the two of them were intersecting each other and kind of spinning out of control. And in my imagination, I was like, oh, this is chaos. The way that they're rotating, and it was like causing kind of negative feelings around me and stuff. And as I started to like focus on it, I was like, okay, I'm going to take control of this. And then they started to kind of spin in a more orderly fashion, being like the gold pyramid was pointing up and the antimatter pyramid was pointing down. They were intersecting each other, spinning in opposite directions, one clockwise and one counterclockwise, but in an orderly fashion. And that kind of cleared up all the negative feelings that were around that. So that was the first session where I had a weird thing pop in my head. So it was that. The second weird session, I had one, and it's funny because it's like they all link together, I guess. I was doing the same thing. I was sitting there focusing on the little pyramid thingies, and for some reason in my head I was in some kind of a swampy environment, and I remember sitting there focusing on making those pyramids spin correctly. And then all of a sudden, like behind me was like some kind of a massive, almost like formless monster. It almost looked like it had like an alligator type head, maybe like kind of a swamp thing kind of feel to it, but it was like towering over me, massive. But as I sat there focusing on what I did, like focusing on the pyramids, it was like I didn't feel like worried that it was right behind me because it couldn't touch me as long as I focused on that, on what I was doing. I was focusing on my task. It was like protecting me or something. So that was the second weird session. And then the third weird one happened last night. And I swear, like, my imagination, I think, is crazy because I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, so that's probably where this is coming from. Then last night, I was sitting there, and for some reason my brain was like, okay, you're doing this because it's in your bloodline. It goes back thousands of years. And it was showing me, like, druids in the past, and it was calling them, I don't know, I guess call them bog watchers. Like, they sit at the edge of a swamp, and they focus on mindfulness because somehow by doing that and drowning out the distractions, they're able to see paranormal and supernatural things that the lay people at that time couldn't see, which was why they kind of have become shamans in their society. So that was really trippy and weird. But yeah, that was the third thing I had, and I was like, man, this could almost be like a good science fiction story. So yeah, anyway, the lesson here is when you turn all the things off in your brain, it makes crazy stuff. So check out meditation. It's beneficial, it's fun, and then sometimes your imagination does crazy stuff.